Putin is getting nervous. Russia is increasing its military presence in Armenia. The Kremlin's strike force is already prepared. Bunkerman wants the entire Transcaucasia. Trains loaded with invaders are already on their way. Putin's troops are in the region, a threat to Armenia's independence. This is no longer an alliance, it's an occupation. Russia is fortifying itself at NATO's borders. Stay tuned for the hot details.
Against the backdrop of escalating tensions with Azerbaijan, the Russian Federation is increasing its military presence in Armenia. This was reported by the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine.
The main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has released a telegram from the acting chief of staff of Russia's southern military district, Major General Zemskov. The document contains an order from the commander of the troops of Russia's southern military district to reinforce the Russian military contingent by so-called additional staffing of the Russian military base in the city of Gyumri, Armenia.
The deployment of Russian troops in Armenia is part of the Kremlin's comprehensive strategy aimed at destabilizing the global security situation. The main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense is convinced that Moscow is accelerating the process of staffing its base to increase military and political pressure on the countries of the South Caucasus. The personnel are being reinforced with servicemen from the Rostov and Volgograd regions as well as from annexed Crimea.
The commander of the military unit Field Post 04436 is to carry out the selection of personnel in the formations and military units of the military district from May 13 to the 11th of June 2025 for the subsequent signing of initial contracts and deployment to the military base for further military service.
The document presented by Ukrainian intelligence also mentions the replenishment of the 8th, 18th, 49th and 58th Combined Arms Armies of the Southern Military District of the Russian Armed Forces. It is possible that Russia wants to increase the size of its military contingent to put pressure on Baku as well as Yerevan, since Russia's relations with Armenia and Azerbaijan are currently not in the best shape.
This base operates as part of a joint group of forces. Attention, in peacetime, it is subordinate to the Armenian command, but in the event of a conflict, it comes fully under the command of the Russian Southern Military District. This military base and the air group in Yerebuni could even be used against Armenia itself, if Moscow suddenly doesn't like something there. In other words, if Armenia abruptly leaves, just as is happening now, the sphere of influence of the Russian Federation, then it's possible that Putin could use them. That's why this is a dangerous situation.
The base in Gyumri was established in 1995. According to the current agreement between Yerevan and Moscow, it will operate until 2044. The 102nd Russian military base is located in Gyumri, the largest military facility of the occupiers in the South Caucasus. The personnel numbers about 5,000 people, 2,500 Russians and 2,000 Armenians. The base is equipped with S-300 surface-to-air missile systems and 18 MiG-29 fighter jets. So it's quite a formidable strike force that could, for example, seize the airport in Yerevan and secure the landing of the main Russian forces. The Russian army attempted a similar seizure at the Hostomel airfield near Kyiv in February 2022. The Armenian Ministry of Foreign Affairs also commented on the GUR's statement about Russia increasing its military presence in the country. They stated that their position is principled and that Armenia's territory cannot be used by third countries.
The Republic of Armenia reaffirms its principled position that the territory of the Republic of Armenia cannot be used by third countries to conduct military operations against any of its neighboring states. Ani Badalian, spokesperson for the Armenian Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The military base in Gyumri is almost the only lever of military and political pressure on the countries of the South Caucasus. The Russian outpost in Armenia can be compared to the Black Sea Fleet base in Sevastopol. It was precisely thanks to Russian forces in Ukrainian Crimea that the occupation of the peninsula took place in 2014, and Armenia should take this lesson into account to avoid repeating the same mistakes.
I'll bomb Moscow, the leak of the year. Trump blew up the airwaves. CNN leaked a scandalous audio recording what Trump actually said to Putin and Xi. NATO is sounding the alarm. China is dragging Russia into a war with the alliance. And something terrible happened at the front. Stay tuned for the hot details.
Official. The US has resumed arms deliveries to Ukraine. And Trump apparently is preparing some kind of surprise, but for Putin.
Are you currently planning any significant actions regarding Vladimir Putin? I'm not going to tell you that. Don't we want to make a little surprise?
You've never heard Trump this decisive before. CNN has published an audio recording from 2024 in which Trump, at a meeting with sponsors, recounts his conversations with Putin and Xi.
Told Putin, if you go into Ukraine, I will bomb the hell out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I won't have a choice. And he was like, I don't believe you, he said. No way. And I told him, oh yes, I would. He goes again. I don't believe it. But the truth is, he did believe me. Well, about 10%. I told you, he believed me about 10%.
But in any case, however,
Where did all of Trump's resolve go when Russia actually invaded Ukraine?
Basically, Trump is known and recognized by the general public for making a huge number of statements that very often have no direct connection to reality. A defining feature of Trump's potential second presidency is even more unrestrained populism than what we got used to during his first term. Therefore, such leaks should primarily be regarded as PR moves by Trump's team.
Meanwhile, the US Senate reports that they will soon impose tough sanctions against Russia. But not only against Russia.
President Donald Trump is absolutely right about the games that Putin is playing. The Senate will soon consider a bill on tough sanctions not only against Russia, but also against countries like China and India, which purchase Russian energy resources and finance Putin's war machine. The Senate bill includes presidential powers that give President Trump maximum leverage. As for Putin and those who support his war machine, it's time to change the rules of the game.
Also on Tuesday, the president of Ukraine signed decrees to synchronize Ukraine's sanctions with the 15th, 16th and 17th packages of European Union sanctions against Russia.
This is a political gesture that is necessary in the current situation. When Europe or our other allies impose certain restrictions on the Russian economy or on specific individuals who are fundamental to the Russian regime or serve it, then in the context of demonstrating solidarity and a unified sanctions policy, such decisions to synchronize sanctions appear entirely logical. On the contrary, even instances when Ukraine does not do this simultaneously and delays the process often raise certain questions.
Nevertheless, the United States plans to provide Ukraine with additional Patriot systems, something that has already been commented on even in the Kremlin.
It is obvious that the Europeans are actively involved in supplying Ukraine with weapons. Of course, these actions are most likely not aimed at promoting a peaceful resolution.
Officially, Moscow does not intend to attack Europe. Lavrov called such suspicions provocative and an attempt to distract attention from the problems of the EU countries themselves. Putin has expressed himself in much the same vein.
So, does even one of you believe that Russia is preparing to attack NATO?
But how true is that, really? Is it just a scare tactic, or does the Kremlin actually have plans for Europe?
When Russians say they're not going to do something, it means they are definitely making certain plans. That's how it was with their aggression against Ukraine. And it's also obvious that today they are preparing their forces for a potential expansion into one of the European countries, which in fact has become a realistic scenario in their minds, precisely because of the lack of a unified stance from Europe and the United States after Donald Trump's return for a second presidential term.
But NATO chief Mark Rutte has no doubt. If China decides to attack Taiwan, it could ask Putin to strike NATO in order to distract the West.
Such a scenario is entirely possible. And this fits quite well with the strategies that the Russians are currently developing in order to be ready in the medium term, say 5 to 7 years, for a direct war with one of the NATO countries. And it is obvious that Russia is focusing its attention primarily on the Baltic states, which have rather limited human and military resources and in the eyes of the Russians appear to be yet another construct for, say, capturing Tallinn in 3 days.
Europeans will never abandon Ukraine. Macron stated this. After all, the overall support for Ukraine determines both security, principles, and the possibility of peace in Europe.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The army is falling apart at the seams. There is a mutiny in Putin's troops. The Marines of the 155th Brigade are refusing to fight. Being cool and daring is no longer about them. They've been wiped out several times already, but the brigade keeps getting restored. The Kremlin demands cannon fodder. The Marines and thugs are surrendering. Putin is furious. Brigade 404. A new name for the Marines. All the details coming up.
We'll both. Stagnation. We want some action.
Putin talked about action, and his army made it a reality.
There aren't even any of those distinctive obelisks or protective fences set up just yet.
They remained silent since the start of Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But after 3 years, this brigade found itself on the verge of open mutiny, something the Kremlin greatly fears.
The commander finds a role for you to accomplish the assigned task. No one would ever send disabled people to assault, never in their life.
No one would send disabled people to assault, never. Soldiers are refusing orders, including former Wagner PMC members. Everyone is openly rebelling.
Oh, boys. It's just really terrible.
We're going to talk about Russia's 155th Separate Marine Brigade.
But for some reason, no one tells us that, damn it, the leadership, damn it, everyone is dead. Why the 155th? Because 4 drones hit the target precisely.
A strike by Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region on the 2nd of July eliminated almost the entire leadership of the 155th Brigade.
I ask you to honor memory of Mikhail Gudkov and his soldiers.
The Russians acknowledged their death during the strike of Major General Mikhail Gudkov, the deputy commander of the Russian Navy. He was the head of the 155th Brigade.
A Russian officer, a true soldier of Russia, your husband, passed away while on duty.
Gudkov is the highest-ranking loss since 2022. Putin promised to immortalize his memory with a school and a street in occupied Donetsk. His 155th Brigade took part in the occupation, where, after the troops retreated, hundreds of dead civilians were found in the Kyiv region. The Kremlin took tough measures to rein in the soldiers of the 155th, sending the butcher Akhmedov to them. He has already given the order to eliminate those who refuse to fight. This Akhmedov has a reputation as a cruel and incompetent commander. He sent the occupiers to their deaths without any preparation. What is the 155th Marine Brigade of the Pacific Fleet known for, anyway? It earned the nickname Black Death because it suffered enormous losses. And Gudkov was called the Sickle. He sent units into assaults without any support. The brigade has a bad history. Our defenders have already wiped it out several times. But each time, it was reconstituted. And with a new lineup and leadership, it carried out criminal missions. In 2022, it was this brigade that took part in Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. During the attempt to advance on the village of Moshchun in the Kyiv region, most of the losses were suffered by the 155th.
The 155th Brigade has already had to be replenished 3 times. The first time was after Irpin and Bucha. The second time they were crushed near Donetsk. They recovered again, but now almost the entire brigade has been destroyed near Vuhledar.
Cool and daring, that's how Putin described the 155th this battle.
The Marines from the Far East are fighting coolly, skillfully and boldly.
The Russian Federation constantly sends the Marine Brigade on meat-grinder assaults under sniper fire. In 2023, after yet another assault in the battles near Vuhledar, only about 8 people were left from the assault brigade. Many were taken prisoner.
He called up the 155th Marine Brigade.
No doubt the objectives will be achieved.
After the Ukrainian Armed Forces operation in Kursk, units of the 155th Brigade were redeployed to the Kursk area.
After we arrived, the enemy no longer felt as comfortable as they did before. And when they found out that the 155th Brigade had come here, they stopped engaging in any firefights with us altogether.
The 155th is known for its brutality and war crimes. They continued committing them even on Russian territory.
If it weren't for the drones, we would have beaten them a long time ago. Where are they going, Lee? They know, and it's very far away.
Russian soldiers from the 155th Brigade beheaded a Ukrainian prisoner of war. A video was also released showing soldiers from the brigade shooting 6 Ukrainian servicemen. The assault in the Kursk region ended epically for the 155th. For the sake of appearances, the elite Marines, recalling 1,945, hung victory flags on their tank. In the end, that very elite Russian 155th Marine Brigade didn't even make it to the first line of defense.
The 155th, in a column under red flags as if on parade, went head-on into a swarm of drones along a mined road. Don't rub your eyes. We wrote everything correctly. It was indeed under red victory flags. And indeed along a mined road. These aren't planning mistakes. This is betrayal and murder.
The commander was blamed for everything by foreign intelligence services without any mention of the botched operation. But soon the Russian Marine thugs surrendered to the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region. At that time, the 155th Guards Separate Marine Brigade of the Pacific Fleet was awarded the Order of Suvorov. Putin also agreed to grant the Marines the honorary title in honor of Kursk.
Of course, their request will be granted, along with words of gratitude for everything they do for the motherland.
Thus, the legendary Marines of the 155th Brigade of the Pacific Fleet are right now moving toward our common victory, breaking through and reclaiming the lands of my native Kursk region. And the enemy knows them. They know that the Varangians do not retreat.
While the command receives medals for brutality, Russia's 155th Marine Brigade could easily be awarded the title of the most unsuccessful unit in the entire full-scale war against Ukraine.